You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones, and we are talking to you following week 2 of the CFL season, and we were given an awesome week, Sheldon Jones. I'm still coming down. It's Sunday night. We just had a great finish to Sunday Night Football, and I'm pretty jacked up. Might be the sugar in the Father's Day cake that I had, though, so that helps.
Nice. Yeah. Some fans might think that was a great ending to the game. I don't know if some Ticats fans will think that, but that was an adrenaline ride that we will get to after we talk about the other 3 games.
It was funny, like trying to watch Sheldon come down from that win. Like, he's struggling right now. He's trying to keep his excitement in check because you were so ready to be angry and go on like a 45-minute rant. But not to be. But I do know who's ready to go on a big rant, Sheldon Jones, and that might be fans of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They are 0-2 on this young season. 23-19, the victory for the Ottawa REDBLACKS. Drew Brown playing his old team, and they got off to a pretty quick start. Like, Drew Brown was moving the ball, leading the offense down the field, and quite quickly in the first quarter, it was 10-0 REDBLACKS. And Sheldon, I guess I just want to mention this about the REDBLACKS because Tommy Condell comes to Ottawa from Hamilton as their offensive coordinator. And Raquel Armstead was sort of a game time decision for the REDBLACKS coming into this one, and we were kind of worried about that running game, especially with Devontae Williams getting hurt in the offseason. But man, they were moving that ball around. Armstead, of course, got 16 carries for 95 yards. He had a 31-yard rush in this one, so he looked great at almost 6 yards a carry. But early on, I was actually pretty impressed with Braylon Addison and the carries that he got. He had 2 carries for 31 yards. But I guess what is so strange about this is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers giving up right around 130 yards on the ground. That is definitely uncharacteristic of that team.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in Winnipeg. I sent out a thing right before we started recording asking for questions, and the only 2 questions we got were, why is Winnipeg suck so bad? So, not my words. It's bizarre. Like, They started last season starting off slow in games, so it seems like they're just continuing that. They're starting slow, and I don't know what it is. Like, they're obviously older. They're slowing down a little bit. They lost Jamarcus Hardrick. That's probably one of their main reasons that this is happening, but defensively, they're playing uncharacteristically. They're letting a lot of it, like explosions and big runs, which they were so dominant against the run. I don't know. Richie Hall, he kind of stepped back and is doing more of consulting, but maybe he needs to do a little bit more consulting because this defense is not what it was last year, and the offense isn't either. So Mike O'Shea has a lot of question marks there.
Adam Bighill made his return to the lineup. He had 4 tackles, including a knockdown. Willie Jefferson had the sack. He added 2 tackles as well. But I just think in general, the REDBLACKS brought more physicality, and they just overmatched Winnipeg's energy as well. And I think that's a lot of times where the Bombers were just running over teams. They were willing to play more physical, just get down and dirty and get the tough yards and overmatch teams. But Ottawa, obviously, coming off the week 1 bye, fired up, ready to get that victory. And I know in the offseason we were kind of wondering if Jackson Jeffcoat would be the biggest exit from that team. Now I'm just kind of wondering if it is Jamarcus Hardrick. Not for some of the things that you can measure and how good he was at right tackle in tandem with Stanley Bryant on the left side, but just the energy and the attitude he brought, firing everybody up on the offense. Because, look, I know people are going to write off Zach Collaros. I understand that. But they were getting overpowered in the middle of the defensive line or offensive line, and Zach was under fire a lot. He didn't have some of the time that he has been used to having behind that offensive line, and he was feeling the pressure by Ottawa. So Jamarcus Hardrick and, the interior of the O-line in Winnipeg, the changes there, it's really causing these early season struggles, because I don't know about you, Sheldon, I really thought the strength of this team, this version of the Bombers, was going to be the offense. I know Kenny the King Lawler is on the 6-game injured list, but the offense hasn't really been able to live up to maybe some of the hype I certainly gave them to start the year. They haven't been flying at all, and they were without Brady Oliveira in this one. Johnny Augustine only got 7 carries for 31 yards. That's another thing that's quite different than we've been seeing from the Bombers over the past few years.
Yeah, I think the difference there in Oliveira and Augustine too is the blocking that Oliveira has been doing, because he's in there every game. He's playing, the majority of the snaps, so he's the one who's used to picking up those blitzes. And maybe just Augustine wasn't quite ready for that. We've seen flashes of brilliance from Augustine in the preseason the past couple of years, but when it comes down to the actual season play, it's not really lining up. I don't know. It's hard for me to think that it's panic time in Winnipeg, but it's pretty damn near close to panic time, because when you're a team that's just, for the past, 4 seasons, I guess, you're just perennial first place. You're going to the Grey Cup. I know you've lost the last 2, but to start off 0-2 after making it to the Grey Cup and being a favorite in the Grey Cup, that's a problem, and they need to figure it out quick, because the fans are already starting to boo. And I know what it's like in Saskatchewan when you have a team that gets used to winning and then they stop winning. It's a very hostile environment, and that's not going to help these players.
I know I said that I'm not panicking about Collaros, but 15-31, 285 yards, 2 interceptions. Not pretty at all. And those receivers, man, they are not getting the separation you want to see from your receiving core. Even if they're making the catches, the defender is all over them. That's what I'm seeing. I know they had Carrick Wheatfall, and I mentioned him on the show, last week. He steps in for Currah or Kenny the King Lawler. He had 3 catches, 111 yards. So, a pretty good, I would say, debut for Wheatfall. But I want to go to a key moment in this game. Of course, there was the weather delay in the middle of the game, which seemed to not really affect Winnipeg, because they were knocking on the doorstep with about a minute left in the fourth quarter. 7-yard line. 1 minute to go, Sheldon. What did you think about Winnipeg's play calling there? The pouring rain, 3 passes, 3 incomplete passes. Of course, credit to the REDBLACKS defense for stepping up there, but that play calling did puzzle me.
On one hand, I get it, because you don't want to risk the wet ball, getting fumbled. But yeah, it just showed that Buck Pierce didn't have confidence in Augustine. He didn't have confidence in the run game, and he thought that the only way that they were going to get in the end zone was with Zach throwing the ball. But those Ottawa DBs were locked in, and they, the credit to them, they were ready. They called a very good game against Zach and Buck Pierce. I don't know. I didn't have in my bingo card Winnipeg starting out 0-2.
I know.
So, I sound like I'm stammering and I don't know what to say, but it's because I don't know what to say.
Okay, I know, last week, week 1 overreaction theater. It basically is week 1 for the REDBLACKS. It's their first game. But on the other hand, you got to be excited if you're an Ottawa fan. They had the ball for over 35 minutes. Usually Winnipeg controls the clock, but here Ottawa controlled the clock. really, really balanced. 129 yards rushing, 238 yards through the air. Drew Brown, 20 of 33, a touchdown, doesn't turn the ball over. Justin Hardy, fantasy team member for me, 7 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown.
Talk about it.
Dominic Rhymes is back with the Ottawa REDBLACKS, 5 catches for 60 yards. Jalen Acklin had 3 catches. And the rookie Nick Mardner gets onto the roster for the REDBLACKS and has a single catch for 9 yards. So they're able to spread the ball around. And look, the energy that Darius Pickett brought to the defense in Ottawa, he only had the 2 tackles, but that they were feeling his energy. That defense actually had 6 knockdowns. They had 3 sacks. Lorenzo Malden, Michael Wakefield, and Damon Webb, the DB. What a game for him, having that knockdown in the end zone from Dalton Schoen, having a quarterback sack. The REDBLACKS defense, we're firing on all cylinders, and really, they had the energy, they had the physicality, and Winnipeg didn't. Where do they find that? I don't know.
They played a complete game. They everything was working for them, and they didn't score a ton of points, but they controlled the ball. They controlled that time of possession, just like you said. Drew Brown looked like a capable starter against Winnipeg. Like, this isn't an end of the season when Zach's sitting out and he's playing against other teams that might not be in the playoffs, and he, throws 9 touchdowns in 2 games in Winnipeg. But he looked good. He didn't turn the ball over. That's that. If you want to win games in the CFL, that's pretty much one of the most important things, is do not turn the ball over. Full marks to Ottawa. Ottawa fans, get excited, because I think they might be for real. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win every week, but I think that they might be able to challenge for a playoff spot, when a lot of people didn't think that at the beginning of the year.
Let's go to Edmonton. Friday night football, where the Montreal Alouettes, the reigning Grey Cup champs, are now 2-0 after beating Edmonton 23-20. Now, I know it's the Elks, but credit to the Alouettes, man. 2 games to start the season, both out west. Now they are 2-0, and just in general, man, I think Cody Fajardo is playing with a lot of confidence right now. 20 of 30, 269 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also added 27 yards on the ground. He's moving around. He trusts his receivers, man. I really think that Fajardo is looking really good, and those Alouettes are looking really good. It was kind of a back and forth affair through the first half, and look, the Elks had an opportunity here. The Alouettes pretty banged up. Tyler Sneed, Reggie Stubblefield, both hitting the injured list. Tyrell Richards, the linebacker, on the injured list as well. But it would go into the halftime, pretty tight game, 17-13 lead for the Alouettes. The highlight of the first half, Sheldon. I gotta play this, or was it in the second half? But anyway, the ref getting hit. Oh, second quarter. About 12 minutes left. The ref takes a punt right to the head. Is that not another beautiful CFL blooper for the history books?
Yeah, that wouldn't have felt good. That would not have felt
sitting
good.
in the lower bowl, 25 yards off the field. He no-sold it, but you could hear it off his head.
Oh, man. That's incredible.
It's the second half where the Elks had opportunity after opportunity, and it's just another one of those stories, where they find another way to lose. And I put actually a highlight reel of mistakes together from the second half, and it starts with the Alouettes actually going for it on like 3rd and 14 with a direct snap to Jesh Renantwi and Joel DeBlanco, the rookie from the Elks, stuffing it. But the Elks took a penalty, Sheldon, bringing back that stop where they would have taken over in Montreal's, side of the field.
Yeah.
If that play stood for the Elks, things might have turned out a lot differently in the second half. And then later on, the Elks go for it on 3rd and short. And Mustafa Johnson is in the backfield on top of Dakota Prukop before he even touches the ball. And then the Elks are on the doorstep again. Dylan Mitchell with a drop on the goal line, wide open. They take another shot at Dylan Mitchell. It's picked off by KB and Ento of the Alouettes. This was Edmonton's game. Last week was Edmonton's game against the Riders, allowing them to come back. But another loss for the Edmonton Elks. Like, man, they just keep finding new ways. And we got to keep finding new ways to talk about it, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah, they just keep snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And I feel for fans like your wonderful wife who have to sit there and, deal with this. It's just, Twitter was crazy after the game. I may have started some stuff that I maybe
we'll get to that, but let's just focus on the game first.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. But it's just, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm at a loss, just like you said. Like, it's baffling. Like, Jones just makes these decisions, and McLeod Bethel Thompson's a good quarterback, but he was not playing good near the end of that game. And, put in Trey Ford as a change of pace for a series just to, get McLeod out of there and get him to watch and see what's happening. You have Eugene Lewis. You have these playmakers. Kevin Brown is one of the best running backs in the league in the past year. A Chris Jones defense is supposed to be a really good defense. All of these things should be adding up to victories, and they're not.
Well, and that's what I want to mention. A couple of those late touchdowns in each half that the Alouettes scored are absolute daggers for your confidence. That 46-yard touchdown from Walter Fletcher with 33 seconds to go in the first half is just brutal tackling from the just complete breakdown from the Elks. But Javon Leake has a 56-yard return. They're able to salvage a field goal right at the end of the half, so they're only down by 4. And then in the fourth quarter, late in the game, another Walter Fletcher touchdown, a 39-yard rushing touchdown, 2.5 minutes to go. An absolute shot to the heart for the Elks. But they had opportunities to get back into this thing. And look, the Alouettes get paid too. Credit to them for making it hard on the Elks, and I already gave them credit for winning 2 road games in a row to start the season. But these Elks, it's just at a loss for words for these guys. Hergy Mayala had 6 catches, 58 yards. Curly Gittens Jr., he had a rough drop, but he also had a big 29-yard reception. That's a highlight reel grab. 7 catches, 93 yards, and Geno Lewis had 5 catches for 54. I didn't think that they looked at him deep enough to get back into this game. And the Alouettes, Keon Julian Grant, 6 catches, 89 yards. He was their leading receiver. Walter Fletcher, the former Edmonton Elk, was kind of all over the place. 12 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown. And then in the receiving game as well, he had 3 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. So 143 total yards. He kind of torched his old team a little bit there at Commonwealth Stadium. And then, hey, Luches Purifoy back into the lineup for the Elks. I did feel like he brought some energy on defense, and that clean, crushing hit he had on Cole Speaker kind of knocked the wind out of him. Good for Speaker to get on the field again after that. But Speaker, that first touchdown he scored, 4 catches, 42 yards. So the Alouettes, it's not like they absolutely lit them up, but when they score a touchdown at the end of each half, and their first drive ends up being a touchdown to Speaker, like the timing of those touchdowns, those hurt an opposing team.
Yeah, and I know it sounds like we're so down on the Elks here, and they only lost by 3 points to the defending Grey Cup champs. So it's bizarre, but Montreal, it looked like they should have scored more points for the effort that the Elks were putting forth. So the Elks are kind of lucky in that sense that it was only 3 points, but they kept it to 3 points. And last week against Saskatchewan, they had a huge meltdown and gave up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They should have won that game too. So the formula is there for wins. They just need to figure out how to finish these games. And that's coaching. Plain and simple. You have the players, they're making the plays, but if you can't go a full 60 minutes with either mentally or physically, whether it's you're too tired of all the play calls or you're too tired physically from just running that much, something has to change at practice for these players to be able to mentally and physically dig deep and play for 60 minutes.
Yeah, the Elks were a lot cleaner this week. Like the Owls had 9 penalties, 75 yards. The Elks were 4 for 37, but you talk about the timing of those penalties, and yeah, one of them being an illegal block when Joel DeBlanco makes the big third down stop and would have given the Elks offense the ball in great field position, but the penalty gives Montreal an opportunity to rethink that and punt the ball deep and make it a lot harder on the Elks. And yes, you mentioned it. McLeod Bethel Thompson, 28 of 42. He did have 300 yards, but 2 interceptions. I know the last one that he threw deep that was intercepted by KB and Ento, he was really under fire. He got the ball and it kind of floated on him, allowing the DB to get under it. But the We Want Trey chants were coming in from the stands, and if it continues like this, it's only going to get louder. And maybe Trey doesn't bring the wins, but he at least brings hope and excitement, and I think it's what he represents for the Edmonton fan base. It's just who they want to see play.
I honestly think that if Trey Ford is playing and they're still losing, it's not as bad. Because the fans want him, and they thought that they were going to get him throughout most of the offseason. They're like, okay, there's no way Jones is going to keep Cornelius. We have to go. We had positives at the end of the year with Trey Ford in there, and then you go out and you sign McLeod Bethel Thompson, which I get it. He's a Grey Cup winning quarterback. He went down and he threw for the most yards in the USFL. I get it, but it's just you messed with continuity. You messed with opportunity for a young Canadian who you could market the entire league off of if he was a star player.
Well, Sheldon, coming up next for the Elks is a road game in Toronto.
Yeah.
And then it's a road game in BC.
Yeah.
And then it's bye. And then it's home to Ottawa.
It could be bye to Chris Jones.
Could it? I don't know. I
don't know if they can afford the coach's cap implications from that, but You got to do something. If they lose these next two games, you got to do something. If you're,
Yeah.
because we can't. You can't go another 9 games or another 7 games, I guess, with a loss in Commonwealth Stadium this season. You can't do it.
Well, now, I don't like talking about attendance on this show, and there are a few reasons why. I just prefer to focus on the positives, and hey, that was an entertaining game, man. It really was.
Yeah.
And the stat sheet says 15,790 were in attendance at Commonwealth Stadium. They would be lucky to probably have half of that actually in the stands. And I don't like talking about attendance on the show because people that listen to this pod, it's like preaching to the choir. Like, what's the point? People that listen to the show probably already go to games if they have the means, or if they listen internationally, they can't go to games. So we need to convince people that aren't listening to shows like this to go to games and, support the Canadian Football League that way. But I see, and honestly, I don't even know what to believe online anymore, because I'm guessing that 80% of those accounts on Twitter crying are not even real accounts, and they're just bots. So they cry about the name change. They cry about, well, it's the CFL, it's minor league. And then they also make comments about Chris Jones, saying that they don't want to support a team that has Chris Jones as the head coach. But the bottom line is, there seems to be a lot of reasons / excuses. But to see a once proud franchise that led the league in attendance every year come down to what it is now, it's sad to see, man. And I refuse to believe that it's because of the CFL product. I mean,
it can't be.
Look what's happening in Winnipeg, and I know Regina dropped off, but hey, they also went 6-12 in back-to-back seasons and never won a game after Labor Day. There's so much excitement on the West Coast, and look, a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's because 50 Cent was there. 50 Cent's not filling BC Place on his own. And the amount of people there that were wearing BC Lions gear and were so excited to get out to the stadium on a Saturday night. Hey, even if they went to the stadium because of 50 Cent and bought a BC Lions hat and shirt, 2 thumbs up, man. Whatever. They bought the ticket and helped the team. So that puts them on the map in that way. So, yeah, I did have that interview with Global News in Edmonton, and you shared the link on Twitter, and then, Twitter's finest ended up coming out, and so it was a bit entertaining. I've taken a step back from Twitter over the last several months. Now I know why, and I commend you. I don't know how you do it. Sheldon Jones.
I like to. It's fun at first, but... Yeah, it's the bottom of the barrel when you have people answering your tweets and saying that it's because of a name change that people aren't coming, and you've been a fan for 30 years and you're not anymore because you can't call the team what you used to call them. Is just baffling to me. I'm a Rider fan. If someone found out that the Rough Rider was offensive and they needed to change it, and they changed it to the Gophers, I would think it's stupid. But I'm still going to the games because it's still the same team. It's the same jerseys. It's playing in the same field. It's the same players, and it's the same game. A name is just a name. And if you're stopping to be a fan because of a name, I can't help you. But part of me wants to hope that there's just too much Oilers fever in Edmonton right now.
Could be, man.
Because they're in the Stanley Cup Finals and they may be getting their ass kicked. They scored 8 goals.
Game 4, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, they scored 8 goals, and you know what? I'm not an Oiler fan, but I've seen the stats of the last 3 times they lost 3 games in a row. They went on tears, and they won. One of them was 16 in a row. And they just need to win 3 more.
Yeah, why can't you win 4? Yeah.
But
that'd be wild.
So I'm so I'm hoping that once it's over and that is not the thing anymore and the talk of the town, that maybe people will be like, oh yeah, we still have the Elks. Let's go out and watch a game. Now, you need to be creative here. Drop ticket prices. I don't care. Sell tickets for $20. You're going to piss off some season ticket holders. I get that. But you need to get people in that stadium. You get people in the stadium for $10, they're going to buy a drink. They're going to buy a hat. They're going to buy a foam finger and elk antlers. I don't know if they have foam elk antlers. They should.
They do have them for the kids. Yep.
Good. Okay, good. But you just got to get them in there. And just like in BC, they get 50 Cent to come in, and people cry on Twitter that that's the reason, and you can't count it when you're talking season attendance averages because there's a concert. No, that's why they're bringing the person in, so that they get people in the seats. But again, as I was saying to all the people on Twitter, you gotta win. You can give tickets for free, but if you're not going to win, or at least have a chance of winning, and granted, this is 2 games in a row, 1-score games. Okay, that's being competitive. There's a lot of years as a Rider fan. If you could tell me that every game was going to be within 1 score, I would be very happy because I would know that you're telling me there's a chance, right? But you got to figure it out, and I don't want to be such a negative Nelly because there's flashes of brilliance there. Just put it all together, and enough about the stupid name change. That's not why they're losing.
That's not. That's the thing. They need to win, but I mean, the other 8 teams don't feel bad for them. They're not,
exactly.
A charity case. Montreal and Saskatchewan both left Commonwealth Stadium with a win, and now the Elks have to go to Toronto and BC. Very difficult assignment, so there's a very real chance that they return home in just under a month with an 0-4 record. So here we are again, and that's a deep hole. But as I was saying at Commonwealth Stadium at halftime, the Elks are tied with Winnipeg. And that is a success for Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton or Bomber fans are saying, "Screw you, man!" But hey, good for the Elks, tied with Winnipeg.
Let's move on.
Let's talk about Saturday night in BC, where those BC Lions had 53,788 tickets sold, and they beat the Calgary Stampeders 26-17. Hey, we've already talked about attendance and all that sort of stuff, and 50 Cent being there and not putting on a PG show, which I actually find pretty funny. But hey, good for him. There was a kid that I saw in the stands, like 8 years old, wearing a 50 Cent shirt. So I love it. Everybody, the players, apparently the coaches were watching it. I can't imagine Dave Dickinson jamming out to 50 Cent, but I guess he was. And look, the BC Lions are on the map in Vancouver again. Whichever way you shake it, man, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was arguing with people on the Twitter about it too, and I was looking at their attendance, and ever since 2019, they have increased every year. And last year was the highest it's been since 2014. So, but people are trying to argue that it's a bad thing and it's not getting better, and it's just you can't fix stupid. But let's just look at the positives here. BC, people are going to games. There was a time when they were at 12,000 for average attendance. One season, I think it was 2021, because it was just after COVID, but 12,000 was their average. Now they're over 20,000. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple as that. But yeah, let's try to keep, like, I don't want to talk attendance on here. The people listening to the show, it's like,
I know.
they want to be going. So now let's get back to the game here where, man, this Calgary Stampeders team, they are going to be competitive. Mm-hmm. And Jake Maier looks like a different guy, man. And now I don't know if Farhan Lalji worded it properly, but I don't know. Is a gluten deficiency a thing? Like, I don't want to.
Yeah, like he's saying he needs to just eat a bunch of garlic bread to keep going. Like,
hey,
maybe he has a gluten intolerance.
Maybe
is he a real gluten sensitive, or is he a fake gluten sensitive? Like, there's a lot of people out there.
I'm gluten efficient. I will say that I'm maybe over efficient.
Fueled by gluten. I burn gluten.
I think what's incredible is that they mentioned that, these athletes lose 6 to 8 pounds and they're just a completely different animal. I lose 6 to 8 pounds. Nobody notices.
Yeah.
But thumbs up to Jake Maier, who looks great. I know there was an interception.
Hey, he looks lean. He does look lean.
He does. And the way he's running and moving, he's able to move the pocket. Man, I think he looks great. 26 of 33, 339 yards, 2 touchdowns. And yeah, there was an interception in there, but the Stamps got off to the early lead here, and they overall did a pretty good job of keeping that crowd out of it. Opening it up with that first quarter touchdown to Mark and Michelle, and the Stamps were making it hard on Vernon Adams Jr. They still limiting. The Lions don't have much of a run game. William Stanback had a nice stat line at 15 carries, 69 yards, but under 5 yards a carry. I mean, not the dominance you want to see, but
it's because I picked him in fantasy.
Yeah, sorry, man. Maybe we just need to give credit to the Stampeders here. They have really come into this season ready to go, and a lot of it is really just on the backs of the quarterback, who has come in and fired up, ready for this season. I know it's a contract year for him, but I think a lot we're expecting them to get crushed in this one, and the Stamps just didn't. They hung around and they gave the Lions a tough game. So first in the West right now is Saskatchewan Roughriders. I don't know if it's going to stay that way, but this is a really interesting start to the season, and the Stampeders, I think a lot kind of had them at last, in the West at least, and I don't know if they're a last place in the West team, man.
Oh, for sure they're not. They're performing well. Jake Maier is getting help from his receivers that he did not get last year, and he's like you said, he's in better shape. He obviously did what he needed to do in the offseason. He realized, or through his coaches or whatever, realized some holes in his game. He worked on them, obviously. And, I'm not saying that I'm stoked as a Rider fan that that's happening, but as a CFL fan, I am incredibly stoked because I want players to be awesome. I want every player to go off. Like, I would be happy if it was tonight's game, I would be happy if it was a shootout every single game. That would be very exciting for everyone, and so I don't want to see players not do well, and it may be fun to point out when it happens sometimes, but I'm enjoying seeing Jake Maier return to what Dave Dickinson thought he was when he decided that it was time to move on from Bo Levi Mitchell, and he's here now, so let's enjoy him.
The running game for the Stamps was kind of average as well. Dedrick Mills, 11 carries for 46 yards, so just over 4 yards a carry. But where he really did well was in the receiving game this week. He had 6 catches, 99 yards. He was the leading receiver for the Stampeders.
He was trucking people.
And they gave B.J. Emmons, the other running back, the ball. There was a play where he duked a guy out of his shorts and then trucked a guy. So I think that long lineage of quality running backs in Calgary is continuing here. And then that great touchdown grab from Reggie Bagleton. Oh, man, what a catch by him there. And Jalen Philpott into this game, 5 catches, 56 yards. I don't know when it is on the schedule, but I'm looking forward to a Calgary-Montreal game. We got to see the Twins swapping jerseys and really balling out there for Tyson and Jalen Philpott. Now, I want to highlight a moment in the second half where things really changed. I believe it was a tie game. Yes, it was. 3rd and 3. 3 minutes left in the third quarter. The Stampeders convert a third down play, take an illegal block penalty. And that one was an absolute dagger to the Calgary Stampeders, because a few drives later, the BC Lions start on their 2-yard line. 8 plays later, Sheldon, 93 yards. Vernon Adams Jr. punches it into the end zone from the 1. That drive had a couple rushes from William Stanback, a couple dynamite catches from Alexander Hollins, a 59-yard completion to Aiden Eberhardt, and then all of a sudden the BC Lions get that lead. 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But if the Stamps are able to convert that third down, not take that poorly timed penalty, and not break down for a 108-yard drive against the Lions, we're talking completely different about this game. But credit to, I think, Vernon Adams Jr. He looks completely dialed in, not only to put great performances on the field, but to lead his team. I'm cheering for this guy. And it doesn't look like his offensive line is always going to give him the time he needs, but he's doing what he can to make it happen. And that drive at the beginning of the fourth quarter was a defining moment in this home opener for the Leos.
Oh, it's amazing for the team that it happens to, and it's so demoralizing for the team that it happens against, because your defense is just on the field, and like you when you go out there, you're fired up. When they're starting on their 2-yard line, you're as a defense, you're fired up because you want to get a safety, and then just keep marching backwards, touchdown. It's just like, what more can you do? It's just deflating, and just the amount of time it takes off the clock too. It's, as an offensive coordinator, that's the perfect drive, because it just takes everything away from your opponent. But yeah, I'm getting reminded of BC when they had Michael Riley, because they spent so much money on him and they didn't have an offensive line to protect him. At least for Vernon Adams' sake, he's a mobile quarterback and he can run around, and he's brilliant at making things happen when he's on the run. But they need to be able to protect him more, because he can't keep getting hit. The BC, they have Jake Delagala as the backup quarterback. That he's not going to be the answer if Vernon Adams goes down. So they need to be able to keep Vernon healthy. I don't know how they do that, but they need to figure it out.
Yeah, they totally do. Vernon went 17 of 29 for 277 yards and 2 touchdowns. The leading receiver for the team, Alexander Hollins, 8 catches, 97 yards. He had a rough drop in this one, but he was able to redeem himself a little bit. Justin McInnis, 4 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. So another great game from him to start this season. That defense for the Lions, I don't know if they're going to be as dominant as they were at times last year, but they were able to get on the board with 4 sacks here. Everybody on the D-line, I think, Pete Robertson, Christian Covington, Josh Archibald, and Marcus Moore all got a sack in this game. So good for the Lions on that one. And they continually had the Stamps working with long fields. There were times last year when that BC Lions special teams coverage unit was getting torched, especially against Janarian Grant and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But this time around, they were on top of the Calgary return unit in a hurry, making Mayer work with the long fields all throughout the game. And that may be why that the Stampeders, they controlled the clock here. 35 minutes and 29 seconds of time of possession, but they were working with the long fields all game long, and the Lions were able to get that win in the home opener at BC Place. Well, Sheldon, we had quite the Sunday nighter.
Boy, did we ever.
33-30. The Riders beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats after putting up 26 points in the second half, 16 of them in the fourth quarter. I guess just right off the bat, the Riders can't continue this. Like, if they want to continue putting wins on the board, starting games as slow as they have been, it's not a normal recipe for success, is it?
No, and they're playing so undisciplined in the first half. Again, it happened today. There was so many bad penalties and costly penalties. It's just, I don't know. It kind of cleaned up in the second half. So obviously Mace, tore into them again, but maybe he's got to do some more tearing into them at practice, because he, I remember this one play where it was on Yeka. He got a holding penalty on Mario Alfred's really big return there in the first half, and you could see that Mace was talking to him, but he looked terrified. Like, he looked just terrified, and I've never seen that, or I haven't seen that in so long. I haven't seen a Rider player even seem to care if they get a penalty. So that's a very positive change, but the defense was just terrible in the first half. First
they can't
3 quarters,
pressure
actually.
the quarterback. They can't pressure them, but also the changes on the secondary for the Riders here were really exposed. DeMarcus Fields, sorry. It's Shamar Bridges for the Ticats. DeMarcus Fields had his first start for the Riders, but then they also shuffled around. Marcus Sales was on the field and Nelson Lacombo at safety, and the communication between those guys in the secondary was non-existent, and Bo was picking them apart. I really think the Riders got kind of lucky winning this game.
100%.
It could have been a lot.
This game.
And look, if Tim White makes that catch early in the game, in the end zone, we're probably not even talking about a Rider win here. But in separate occasions, the Ticats had a 13-point lead, and I think 2 separate 10-point leads, still unable to hold on. So, Trevor Harris and the Rider offense were able to get back into this one. But that's secondary for the Riders. A lot of changes this week, and it almost cost them.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, obviously, I know Dalkey got hurt a little bit in the game, but I don't think he was hurt enough that he shouldn't have been playing. I think this is more of a punishment for his penalty that he took, his taunting penalty. And I get it. You wanna make it so that there is consequences for taking a stupid penalty, but I just wonder if this is, Corey Mace overthinking this a little bit too much and maybe making a little bit of a rookie mistake by tinkering so much with the defense. Maybe Marcus Sales didn't quite have the plays. Maybe he wasn't quite conditioned, ready to go. Maybe he should have sat out one more game. There's a lot of maybes there, but The one thing I will say, and we talked about it when we were talking about the Elks and the Alouettes game, the Riders are conditioned to play 60 minutes. This is 2 games in a row now where they have gone to the final whistle almost, and that is what got them the win. So I'm very happy about that, but this game was just a roller coaster of emotions. We had a couple really good offensive drives that were separated by a lot of terrible offensive drives. Some good defensive stands, but again, just I thought Nick Marshall was out there again. I have PTSD from Nick Marshall. You know what? You never question a win, so we're taking the win. We're 2-0. I had higher expectations than I thought for this team initially once we signed Currah Mace, but if you would have bet me any money at all that the Riders would be 2-0 and Winnipeg would be 0-2, I would have not bet because I didn't want to lose money.
Now, there's a moment in this game where
there's a lot of moments in this game.
Yeah, that's true. The second half was pretty crazy. Now, I believe it's 20-17 where the Riders force a fumble here, and it ends up getting, was it by CJ Reavis?
Yep.
He ends up recovering the fumble, but in the process of the tackle and the fumble being forced, his helmet comes off. But he's right there and recovers the ball without his helmet on. Well, the rule states that is illegal participation. Now, I think there's positives to having a black and white rule because it doesn't leave anything up to interpretation. Yeah. But he was right there. It's not like his helmet got ripped off 15 yards away from the play and ran in and recovered the ball. But the Riders thought they had the ball down 3 points in good field position, and that play ended up getting called back. What a wild sequence of events and a roller coaster of emotions, Sheldon, because the very next play ended up being a flea flicker and a 58-yard completion to Keandre Smith, and then a 16-yard touchdown to Shamar Bridges, and suddenly the Ticats are up 10 again. I really thought that at that point, the Riders were done. That was late in the third quarter. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the play, I thought to myself, I was like, his helmet came off. And so I knew the rule, right? And yeah. So I get it. But like you said, it's not like he did anything other than just move his arms to get the ball. Yeah. So it actually kind of reminded me of a play last year where the Riders, there was a fumble going out of bounds and the Rider player hit the ball, yeah. But as he hit it, they said that he was out of bounds. Like
I
that
think
split.
He was diving.
He was diving, yeah. And his knee touched at the split second, and so it's like it's so ticky tack, and it's so like you have to slow the clock down, and so like again, like you said, it's good to have black and white rules, but at the same time, sometimes it's like you're taking away an amazing effort from a player just because of the tiniest little thing, and so it's frustrating as fans, but. A good friend of mine, owner of RiderFans.com, Gov on Twitter after said that what happened at the end of the game might have been the football gods maybe fixing that a little bit. So maybe. I definitely believe in football gods, but I just heck of an effort by Reavis to pop that ball loose, and then just the wherewithal to, while you don't have a helmet on, to get that ball. And again, it's player safety. You don't want a player running in and trying to tackle somebody without a helmet. So I completely understand the rule. It was the rule. It was the right call, but it was still dumb.
Now, and then the teams end up trading field goals until late in the fourth quarter. The Riders take up on their own 22-yard line and go to work here. There were a lot of opportunities for the Ticats to end this. 2nd and 17. Trevor Harris hits Jarrett Stern for 18 yards to get the first down. He even ends up Mario Alford on the field, I think because Stearns got hurt on that play. Yeah. They threw Alford out there, and he ends up making a crucial catch on 2nd and 3 on the Hamilton 17 that had to be reviewed, and it was a good catch. And Kean Schaefer-Baker really went to work on that drive. He had a 37-yard completion. He had a 7-yard completion. He also had the 11-yard touchdown at the end. So the game's tied at 30, a minute 27 to go. And that's
I got to interject here for a quick sec.
Yeah, sure.
Because I got to give a shout out to Stearns for holding on to that ball when he got hurt. Yeah. Because you can tell like his heel planted in the turf, and he looked like he hyperextended his knee a little bit. But just for him to be able to, while taking that pain, securing that ball, hell of a play. Continue.
And then, the drive ending with that touchdown to Kean Schaefer-Baker, and it's a tie game. We're kind of thinking we're going to overtime here. But
I wasn't. I was thinking that they were going to march down the field and they were going to kick a field goal and win.
And Tim White's name comes up again. 30 seconds left in the game. It should have been a catch for him. And the ball deflects up. The Riders get the interception, take over on Hamilton's end of the field. Brett Lawther kicks the field goal. Riders win 33-30. If you're a Ticats fan, like, you have to be shocked. Like, are you criticizing the play calling? Like, you want to play for the field goal instead of overtime, but I mean, the defense had 10-point leads, 13-point leads. They gave up that 2nd and 17. Is it the defense's fault? Man, you're just shell-shocked if you're a Ticats fan after that game. I actually think both defenses probably left something to be desired in this game. But both quarterbacks, I think Bo, you can't blame that interception on him. The way he's moving around out there, 380 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 27 of 38. And then Trevor Harris, 390 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 of 45. Like over, 750 yards, 770 between the two teams. It's quite a good performance from these veteran QBs. But that end of the game, whew. If you're a Rider fan, you're breathing a sigh of relief. If you're a Ticat fan, you're wondering what the heck happened.
Yeah, like you said, it's just a freak play, right? Like there wasn't anything that made that ball slippery. It's not like it was raining. It happened to squeeze out of there. And I'm sorry, Tim White has had some costly drops. he put down, I think that's 3 touchdowns now he's dropped in the 2 games, and now this where it just popped right into the defender's arms. He's got to figure out what's going on there. He's got to be working with his coach. He's got to stand in front of that ball shooter machine and just catch the ball 100 times. Like it's probably a mental thing, to be honest. He's got to figure it out mentally, but you just got to put your hands in the air. Like, there's nothing more they could have done. It's just a weird bounce. And I think Hamilton fans need to take solace that they're actually a lot better than a lot of people thought they were going to be. And Bo is looking like Bo again.
The guy that they signed, the guy that they wanted him to be when they signed him.
Yeah, and when Bo is on, he's scary. He's the winningest quarterback in CFL history. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And correct me if I don't know this off by the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure him and Trevor Harris are the 2 oldest quarterbacks in the league right now. Maybe McLeod is in there. maybe, but they're leading the league in passing. Those two guys, and that's great to see, in my opinion.
Man, what a wild end to week 2. I think a great start to the season for the Ticats. Stephen Dunbar Jr. returns to black and gold in Tim Hortons Field. He has a touchdown, 3 catches for 73 yards. Keandre Smith, 6 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown. Shamar Bridges had the most targets last week. Maybe he's a guy we got to start looking at in fantasy, man, because he had 6 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. And yeah, Tim White, 4 catches on 9 targets, 57 yards, and a lot of those costly plays off of his fingertips. I'll mention that neither team was effective on the ground. James Butler had 12 carries for 27 yards. AJ Ouellette, 11 carries for 32 yards. Not able to get much going there. Sam Emelis had 5 catches for 45 yards. It seemed like the hard ones were going his way. Like a lot of those weren't his fault, I thought.
Yeah.
Jareth Stearns, 6 catches, 112 yards. KSB comes on in the fourth quarter, 7 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Sean Bain Jr., 4 catches, 50 yards. Didn't play in the second half, so that will be a status to watch going forward here. We don't have to wait too long for these two teams to play again. They'll be playing next Sunday to wrap up week 3 of the CFL season. It starts on Thursday, Ottawa in Montreal, BC in Winnipeg. Oh, Friday night football, baby. And then the Elks are in Toronto to play the Argos on Saturday. So I think we both go 3-1 and pick 'em. It didn't look like it was going to be like that at many times this week. Do you want to talk about your fantasy roster? Because if not, I understand.
Yeah, you start because you had a good week, and I'll bring it up here.
Okay, so we take part in the CFL Fans Fight Cancer Fantasy League. I thought I had it won, dude.
You did.
I had a lead with like 90 seconds left in the Ryder Ticat game because I had Jareth Stearns and I had AJ Ouellette. So the 2nd and 17 catch from Stearns put me in the lead until Trevor Harris just started throwing to KSB. And then like 3 people passed me. But I had 150.8 points in week 2. The Bomber defense had 4 points, making Vernon Adams Jr. my captain worked out. So that ended up being 56 right there. Dedrick Mills, 20.5 points. AJ Ouellette, 9.9. And my receivers, they did all right. Jareth Stearns, 17.2. Justin McInnes, 19.1. And Justin Hardy, 24.1 points. So I'm pretty happy with my week 2 output, Sheldon Jones.
And I'm not happy. I haven't even looked, but I know I lost to the Turf District this week in the CFL podcast league as well. I had the Ryder defense, which got me 1 point, so that was wonderful. I had Zach Caleros, and he got me 7.4 points. AJ Ouellette was my captain, so that doubled his 9.9 to get to 19.8. I had Tyson Philpott, who, again, I followed big weeks and I shouldn't have. So he only got 9.9 points. Sean Bain Jr., again, I followed a big week. He got 9 points. Augustine, for my value pick at $2,800, he got 13.8 points. So that's not bad. But the only good thing about my week is William Stanback got 6.9 points.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm going to try better next time.
Okay. I do want to wrap up the show with an email that we got from Germany, Sheldon Jones. Now, last week we talked about, messages we've gotten from Australia and also from the States. And I think this is really, really cool. Now, I'm probably going to mess up some pronunciation here, so I do apologize in advance. But Johannes is sending an email from Berlin. And he starts it off with Guten Tag. I was just listening to your Week 2 prediction episode with you mentioning listeners from the US and even Australia. So I thought you might find it interesting that there's also listeners from Germany. I have followed the CFL since the early 90s. And the only access back then was the statistics section in the only German football magazine called Huddle. With the 2000s came the internet, and I was able to watch game recaps regularly, and I became an Alouette fan around 2006, the Calvillo years. At this time, I seemed to be the only CFL fan in Germany. Luckily, things have improved since Theodric Hansen signed with the Blue Bombers, and the increasing number of football fans, the NFL is huge here, in Germany are more aware of the CFL. He discovered the podcast a few weeks ago, says we're informative, professional, fun, and good sound quality, better than some of the biggest NFL podcasts. Looking forward to each new episode. That is Johannes from Berlin, which I find pretty damn cool, man. Maybe we got to go over there and have an Oktoberfest party or something like that.
That sounds good to me, man. I also wanted to give a shout out to some of our listeners because as I said on the last show, we opened up a store and we've gotten like 13 orders. So very, very appreciative, and just wanted to let everyone know that 25% off is good until the 25th of June. So if you want to grab some merch and get it for 25% off, the link is in the description.
Yeah, and you can go to twoandout.ca actually and just click shop. It'll take you right there. That'll work perfectly. You can support the show on Patreon. You can rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher as well. And Sheldon, I'm going to give you a last opportunity here. Your power rankings. Some people, after watching the games, have come to your defense. Do you have a tease for your power rankings going into week 3? Because, man, I'm looking forward to this.
My tease is maybe don't think that I'm doing things to troll when I'm right. No, my tease is Winnipeg and Edmonton. You're in the bottom. You're welcome.
Spoiler alert. Thanks for listening to another episode of Two and Out. Man, I'm right in the groove of things. The CFL is back, baby. We'll be back to prepare you for week 3 later this week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.